I'm pretty sure that at least 99% of the people watching this video know what Kickstarter is. But if you don't, and you're part of that 1%, Kickstarter is essentially a crowdfunding platform that allows people who want to make cool things to be supported and funded by people who want to buy cool things. I happen to be over here, people who want to buy cool things. And the product that we're talking about today is very niche and specialized in that it appeals to people who love watches, but also who love dressing up. I happen to be in the former, and I like watches. So without further ado, this is Technically.
Let's go. Let's go.
Oh man, I honestly don't know how long it's been since I first found out about Kickstarter. It feels like ages, maybe at least since 2016. But since I started using it, there's been a whole slew of people, a creative community who've come up with all these cool ideas and cool things, but also a community who has just been generous with their support to bring these things to life, myself included. Because this right here in this box is one of those projects I backed and I wanted to see come to life. We'll talk about it more in a second, but on Kickstarter, you can find all kinds of things. I encourage you to go check it out because there might be something that catches your eye. But there's like smart tech and stuff for your computers, hard drives, there's like innovative blankets, things for your cars, for your pets. Even this over here, this vertical record player, started off as a Kickstarter campaign that I backed a few years back, quite a few years probably. But ever since then, it's been running like a charm, and it's often been a conversation piece because not often do you get to see a record being played vertically. But this is why we're here. This little orange container has a very niche product in it, and I say niche because, like I said earlier, it appeals to people who love watches and also people who like to dress up and, dare I say, look fancy. Because the brand Creamy Patina came up with the idea to turn some iconic Rolex watches into miniature wearable cufflinks. Cufflinks, yes, you heard that right. For anyone not in the know, cufflinks are one of those things that you usually associate with a special occasion, like a wedding or an anniversary, or maybe you're going to a black tie event, you have the tuxedo, you're getting dressed to the whole 9 yards, but instead of having buttons here on the cuff of your sleeve, you actually have a little slit that allows you to put cufflinks in there. Cufflinks come in all shapes and sizes. It's just a way to make your attire and your suit a little bit more personalized and you. And so that's where these come in, because these miniature cufflinks are modeled after some iconic Rolex watches. And for anyone who owns a Rolex, sometimes they're very personal as well. They can be family heirlooms, they can be given as a gift, or maybe they're just worn for special occasions. Now, instead of wearing it just on your wrist, you can actually accent it and personalize your suit with a Rolex cufflink, which I think is pretty cool. But before we talk about it anymore, I think we need to be in the proper attire so we can continue this conversation. Now that's more like it. Let's dive into a world of watches. Truthfully speaking, I had no idea who Creamy Patina was before backing their Kickstarter campaign. But if you go over to their website, you'll find out that they are a two-brother duo, one of them being a doctor, the other being a biochemist, who just have a profound love for watches. The brand was started because the duo was collecting and repairing vintage watches, which they would then sell via their website. But the whole cufflink idea didn't come around until 2020, when most of the world found themselves with a lot of extra time due to all the COVID quarantine protocols. They used that time to focus in on their hobby, and they reimagined the word wearables, because instead of wearing watches on your wrist, they thought, why not recreate some of these iconic watches and turn them in to cufflinks? There are 4 watches that were reimagined into cufflinks, which I'll give a little overview on each of them and what makes them stand out and why the detail on these cufflinks are impressive. But really quick, I just want to answer a question that everyone is probably thinking. Are these actually real watches and are they functional? Yes, I'm glad you asked that, because they are fully functional watches with actual Japanese movements in them that will keep time pretty dang accurately. Of course, you'll probably still check time with your regular watch that you have on your wrist, but as an added attention to detail, Creamy Patina took the extra steps to actually make these functional watches that will keep time for you. So that's just another pro to actually getting this set of cufflinks. Although you just saw me take them out of this orange container, which doesn't have the best presentation, there's a note to keep in mind. I was a Kickstarter backer. I got these at a lesser price than what they're being offered for now on their website, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the whole Kickstarter process. But when you order them, you don't get this orange like recycled paper container. You actually get these vegan leather pouches with each set of cufflinks that you purchase, so they will come in a much more presentable case than this orange one. Obviously, there are a ton of watches out there that could be considered iconic, but I'm sure most people would argue that the brand Rolex is probably the first one that comes to most people's minds when they think of luxury watches, because the name is just so commonly associated with luxury watches. I don't know why Creamy Patina decided upon these 4 styles of watches to recreate these cufflinks, but I'm not arguing, because these are some dang beautiful watches, or cufflinks, or watch links. What are they? Like I was saying earlier, each of these 4 cufflinks is a fully functional watch, and they keep time with an hour hand, minute hand, second hand, just like you would find on your traditional wristwatch. They also have replaceable batteries, so in case those batteries give out, you can just replace it with another one. And if I recall correctly, those batteries are your standard watch battery, so there's no proprietary battery that you would need to find or purchase from Creamy Patina to get them up and running again. The only exception I would make is the Daytona chronograph. The chronograph function on it is just for looks and visualization. Those dials don't actually work, these buttons don't work. That's just for attention to detail. But otherwise, all 4 of these cufflinks keep time just like a regular watch would. And they do so using a Japanese Seiko PC21 movement. That movement is accurate enough where it won't lose more than 30 seconds of time over a 1-month period. So I'd consider that pretty accurate for a dang cufflink. 2 other things worth noting on top of the watch functionality, replaceable battery, and the Seiko movement are that all the cases are made with 304 grade stainless steel. That's a step above 302, which I don't know all the differences of, but I'll do a little digging for you. And that just means that these are going to be durable enough to withstand the tumbles of everyday life. You're going to wear them on your cuff, and so sometimes your hand is going to hit up against stuff like a wall, car door, counter. So it just gives you a little bit of peace of mind that they're going to be durable enough to not get wrecked every time you want to wear them. The other thing worth mentioning is that all the glass used on these cufflinks is mineral glass. Mineral glass is pretty common for your wristwatches, unless it's like a very high-end brand or luxurious watchmaker where they might use a stronger material such as sapphire. But in most cases, mineral glass is going to be more than enough to do the job and just be able to roll with the punches of everyday life. Now, I'm sure Creamy Patina has an extensive collection of watches to choose from, but ultimately they settled on these 4 Rolex styles to reimagine as cufflinks. And the first of which is going to be modeled after the Rolex Submariner, which was originally released in 1953. If the name doesn't sound familiar, then the look probably might, because it's probably one of the more iconic Rolex looks that at least I would be aware of. Obviously, these all have their distinguishing features, but the Submariner just has a look that's recognizable because of that outer bezel and then those distinguished hour markers inside the dial. The Submariner was notable because back in the day it was touted as the first diving watch, which was huge because you could essentially just submerge with the watch on your wrist. And Creamy Patina went ahead and recreated a lot of the details that you'd find on the Submariner, such as that outer bezel, those hour markers. They also went ahead and gave it luminescent hands, so the hour and the minute hands, as well as those hour markers on the dial. Now, unfortunately, Creamy Patina couldn't use any of the Rolex trademarks for obvious reasons, and that includes the Rolex name, logo, the watch names. So if you look on the dial, it'll actually say Creamy Patina, and then it'll say the name of the watch, which in this case, this one is the Cuff Mariner instead of the Submariner. All right, well, not bad, I must say. Once you put your cufflinks on, then you're obviously going to notice a very distinguished look that's set apart from other people's cufflinks that you might have seen, but these definitely stand out. I've never owned cufflinks, I'll be the first to say it, and I didn't really much care for them, but when I saw these, I figured it was about time I got a pair of myself, and actually had to go out and buy this shirt specifically so I could use the cufflinks with it. It's just an eye-catching part of your outfit, just like any other accented piece of jewelry would be, like your earrings or necklace. Guys don't have a lot of that, so cufflinks are a way just to personalize your outfit and give it a little bit more uniqueness. And I think these do just that, because look at what the heck, man. You're wearing watches as a cufflink. Crazy. And obviously not just any watch. Granted, this isn't the Rolex brand, but from afar, this is instantly going to be a conversation piece because it's modeled after the Rolex Submariner, and people are going to wonder, what the heck are you wearing on your wrist? And you get to tell them, this is a Cuff Mariner cufflink. The next cufflink in this collection is going to be the Rolex Milgauss. I should also mention that collectively these 4 cufflinks are known as the Wilsdorf collection. I don't know the significance of the name Wilsdorf, but that also might suggest we could see other collections in the future. Fingers crossed. As far as the Milgauss goes, it was designed to withstand high or strong magnetic fields. The word mil is French for 1,000, and Gauss is a measurement of magnetism. So put the two together and you get Milgauss. This is geared towards people working in those specific environments with high magnetism, because the watch is able to withstand that, which magnetic interference could interfere with its ability to keep time accurately. So with that engineering design and built in, it became successful and has been a long-running staple in the Rolex lineup. One thing that was very important for Creamy Patina to carry on the tradition of was the second hand. So you have your hours and minutes hands, but then you also have a second hand that shows a little lightning bolt. They said that that was one of the most challenging parts of creating this collection, because they wanted to pay homage to the original Milgauss, which ever since it's released has had that lightning bolt seconds hand. And now you can say it's actually in this cufflink, so it's even more accurate to the original Milgauss that was released. I do have to admit that I'm really appreciative of Creamy Patina's attention to detail when it comes to paying respects to these watches, because not only are they modeled after the watches, but they're taking some of those iconic and distinguishable features and putting them in this cufflink, which is just a little bit bigger than the tip of my finger. So kudos to Creamy Patina for doing this and for taking all those details into consideration. So the next one I want to talk about is the Oyster Perpetual Tiffany Blue. This one got its name for obvious reasons, because the iconic robin egg Tiffany blue color was used for the dial. The name Oyster Perpetual actually refers to a couple different watches in the Rolex lineup. Oyster simply means that the watch case used is waterproof. Back in 1926, that's when Rolex introduced its first Oyster watch case, and it was simply just named after the oyster because it was waterproof and it's supposed to be watertight. Perpetual is referring to the wind-up motor inside all the Rolex watches, and that they're perpetually winding. So put them all together and you have yourself an Oyster Perpetual Tiffany Blue. Besides the distinguishing blue color of the dial, you also have another detail that Creamy Patina brought over from the actual Rolex watch. If you look closely on the dial, you have the hour indicators, so single batons for every hour, except for the 3, 6, and 9 markers. Those specific hours are being marked by dual batons, as opposed to single batons on all the other hours. So just like we saw with the Milgauss getting a faithful recreation of the lightning bolt seconds hand, the Tiffany Blue, or I should call it the Cuffany Blue, got a faithful adaptation of those batons being passed down. Now the last cufflink we get to highlight in this collection is modeled after the original Rolex Daytona chronograph. This one is called the Cuftona, and it's specifically modeled after the Daytona chronograph that the actor and race car driver Paul Newman used to wear. People say that Paul used to wear his watch so frequently, and he actually wore it every day, that it just became associated with him as an actor and a race car driver, so that now when people refer to this specific style, which is I believe is 6239, it's called the Paul Newman Daytona. And that refers to this specific color scheme, because you can find the Daytona in different colors, but this is the Paul Newman variant, if you will. Creamy Patina took consideration when recreating this cufflink, and they included the original tachometer scale, which is on the outer bezel. Like I said before, although this is a chronograph watch, the actual features of a chronograph don't work on the cufflink, but it will keep time for you, so it has that going for it. I still can't get over the fact that I'm rocking a mini Submariner on my cuffs, and to think that all 4 of these cufflinks were faithfully recreated based on the original Rolex watches is mind-blowing, because they're miniature luxury watches that work as functioning timepieces, but are also aesthetically pleasing, if I do say so myself. And if you don't want to use these as a cufflink, you can also use them as a lapel pin. You can use them to attach to your bag, laptop bag, your purse, however you want to express your love for watches. It's up to you. Earlier I mentioned that I was a backer for this project on Kickstarter, so I just want to touch on that really quick so that way everyone can understand what it means to back something and see a product actually come to life. Kickstarter is a crowdfunding campaign like I mentioned earlier, and that just means people who come up with an idea, have certain goals to be met like funding, and that funding is met by people who want to see that idea come to life, those being the backers and the supporters. When I saw this, the funding goal was about, I think, $5,000, give or take, or maybe I think it was English pounds. Once that funding goal is met within the campaign window of time, so let's say 6 weeks, then all the people who pledged money would be charged via their payment method, and then everything would go into the hands of the creators to provide updates for the backers, as well as a projected timeline as to when to expect a delivery of the product that they backed. However, when you pledge money, that doesn't guarantee you're going to get anything in return. Often, you will see tiers of rewards, so if you pledge $100, you would get this reward, $200 would be this reward, so on and so forth. Sometimes you can also donate money, just because you like the cause and you want to support the creators. But when you pledge money, it is not a guarantee you're going to get anything, it's just pledging your support for that particular project. And unfortunately, I've been on the receiving end of campaigns that were successful because they met their funding goals. However, the creators did not deliver on their promises and they ultimately just kept the money. And there is no way for Kickstarter to enforce that policy where creators have to deliver something, because there can be hiccups along the way, like maybe manufacturing costs went up or something prevented them from delivering it. Or creators could have malintent and not have any intention of delivering a product. So in those cases, you just want to do a little bit of research and your due diligence to make sure the creators that you're supporting have a consistent track record or a solid track record of successful campaigns before. Or at least look for any red flags in their verbiage of their campaign that you're going to try and pledge. But in the case of Creamy Patina with their Kickstarter campaign and the Wilsdorf collection, I do have to say that they exceeded expectations. Not just because they delivered an awesome product, but because they did so in a timely manner with courteous updates to backers, as well as an incentivizing price point for people who back them on Kickstarter. Obviously, in the manufacturing world of things, there are a lot of things that can get in the way, things like setbacks, and things can take a little bit longer than expected. With those projected timelines that creators give you, sometimes they can arrive early, sometimes they can be a little bit late, and you just have to trust that the creators are doing everything they can to get their products out to you. And usually it will pay off because you get these awesome products in the end at a price that most people won't get them at. If you go to Creamy Patina's website, the price that you see there is not what people who backed on Kickstarter would have paid. And that's a perk of being a Kickstarter backer. You are taking a risk by pledging your money with no guarantee of a reward, but oftentimes creators will offer rewards at 30%, 50% off of the retail price, varying from project to project. But with these cufflinks, they're definitely worth their weight in gold based on just the level of attention to detail alone. Creamy Patina definitely outdid themselves when creating and designing these works of art, and I would happily support them on another campaign if they decided to do one. Of course, I wasn't endorsed or sponsored by Creamy Patina to make this video, so everything I'm saying is just my personal opinion. But I'm happily commending them on their attention to detail, their craftsmanship, and the work that they put in to bring these cufflinks to life, because they are impressive works of art. I definitely encourage everyone to go over to Creamy Patina's website, check out the Wilsdorf collection, see if you might want to add one of these to your collection or gift someone you know on the next special occasion. And also check out Kickstarter, because you never know what treasures you're going to find on there. There's so many cool things, and I'm personally waiting on a couple of my own, so that way I can share them with you guys. But until then, head down below, leave a like, a comment, and a subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Let's go.